Welcome on Texas Football. It's time for the Roundup. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton of On Texas Football. Roundup brought to you by our friends at Allegiant Digital Marketing. We're gonna do this a little early today because of all the recruiting news that broke on Saturday. And so, Gerry, I tell you what happened yesterday. You look at it. Texas went 1 for 3. But that's what we said we thought was going to happen.
Right.
We said that we thought Cade Phillips, the safety out of Hightower, would go to Texas. He committed to Texas. That's a big one for Texas, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that. The second one was Lamont Rogers, the big offensive lineman out of Mesquite Horn. You've been saying Missouri coaches had a little in there and kind of exercised it, and he ended up choosing Missouri. Riley Pettijohn, the linebacker of McKinney, he ended up choosing Ohio State on Saturday. And Gerry, you got to see this. The tweet by Steve Sarkisian subsequent to Cade Phillips committing. This is a classic immediately that I think all Longhorn fans can identify with. Steve Sarkisian quoting, "The pride and the winning tradition of the University of Texas will not be entrusted to the weak or the timid." Big picture of Earl Campbell there, toting the rock as well. That's good stuff. All right. With the commitment of Cade Phillips, Texas is now back up to 13 commitments on the campaign. Let's talk briefly about Cade Phillips, and then I want to talk about some other kind of thoughts I have about this recruiting class as a whole, as the Texas fan base right now, I think, is smarting a little bit about not landing every single person they're after, but let's talk about Cade Phillips and what he brings to the table, because I think that he is if not the top safety in the state and one of the tops in the nation, he's certainly in that category of elite level ability.
No doubt. I mean, he's, by the way, somebody that is very close to him told me he's closing on 6'3". They think he's going to be 6'3" at the end of the day, but super long arms, 80-inch wingspan, 10-inch hands, 24/7 long jumper twice, qualified for state in the 200 meters. I mean, I just think the kid, I think the world of his upside potential. I actually like that he wants to be a corner. I like that he wants that challenge and thinks he can go play corner. Can he? I don't know. He'll have to prove that. But we know for one thing for sure, he's going to be a heck of a rangy, athletic, long arm safety if he's not a corner. He's a physical player. His ball skills show up on offense. I love that he competes in track in multiple events, qualified for state in multiple events. I really like that he bet on himself too. This is a commitment. Look, Corey Raymond said corner, corner, corner. You come here, you're playing corner.
And Corey Raymond's the defensive backs coach at LSU.
Yes, yeah. So he bet on himself coming to Texas, saying, you know what? Texas is where I want to be. My parents liked me at Texas. His older brother went to A&M. They like the academic combination and football combination at Texas. His father's a big Texas fan. He bet on himself. He said, all right, I think I can play corner at Texas. Just give me a shot at it. And if it doesn't work out, then he'll be open to the move to safety. But I love, Bobby, that this kid bet on himself. Shows a lot.
It makes it easy to bet on yourself when you go to state in the 200 meter.
Yes.
And you long jump 24/7.
Yes. And
you're wanted by schools across the nation.
Yes.
Look, this puts Texas back up to 17 commitments. And what I want to say about that is this. Or, excuse me, 13 commitments. I think I said misspoke there. 13 commitments. So they're basically July 6th or 7th. I guess this is 7th today. July 7th, Texas is at 13 commits. Last year, they finished the December, or actually early January, with 21 commits, right? Or 22.
Yeah, 22.
So we've got another week or two of more commitments coming from this high school class for this summertime little stretch. Then we'll have some more in August and more throughout the season. How far off right now is Texas from maybe where they want to be commitment-wise? I mean, how far truly are they off? Take all the brouhaha and hubbub that people have made over the last week and a half. Where are they really at right now, Gerry, in your opinion?
I think they're 4 off where they wanted to be. And that would have been DeCorian Moore, a couple of defensive tackles, and probably a corner, either Aiden Anding or Dorian Brew. I think they're 4 off where they ideally wanted to be right now.
Okay. And if that's the case, all right, I'm looking at it. People got to remember. So I'm looking at something that I kind of have a little bit of a theory that's been percolating in my head. And you and I have talked about it.
Right.
Texas is finishing second
on
more players than they did a year ago. And I think that's making fans think that they're getting beat worse than maybe they were last year. Say Texas finishes second for Riley Pettijohn, right? One of the three in-state linebackers Texas offered. They've offered three. They've got one, Bo Barnes. They're recruiting Jonathan Cunningham still. They lost Riley Pettijohn. Well, who was the top offense? Who was the Texas only offered two linebackers last year?
Yeah.
Okay. We all remember Anthony Smith flipping from Texas A&M. But Texas also offered and tried to get in on Justin Williams.
Yep.
But nobody talks about that one being a big loss or the brouhaha over it not so great because you know what? He was going to Georgia.
Right.
And so Texas lost a great player there, I think. One of the top 5 players in the state of Texas.
Agreed.
Okay. But nobody even talks about it. It's kind of like to me, you mentioned Dorian Brew. I think Dorian Brew is a really good player. Okay. But I think Devin Sanchez is the best corner in the state of Texas.
No doubt.
He's going to Ohio State. So I think I'm looking at it like, did you lose one of the top 5 or 10 players in the state? I think losing DeCorian Moore was that big.
Yes.
I agree with that. I'm not so sure I put Riley Pettijohn there. I love Lamont Rogers' upside. And so my thinking on this is what's happening right now is Texas is finishing second on guys like Josiah Sharma when last year, frankly, you know, they lost. I'm looking at the defensive line list they lost last year. Terrence Hibbler went to Mississippi State. Dominic McKinley to LSU. Isaiah Funga to Alabama. Is that right?
Yeah, Alabama.
TJ Lindsey to Auburn. Jaden Jackson to Oklahoma. D'Alen Evans to A&M. And so now they signed Melvin Hills, Alex January, and DeAndre Robinson, but Robinson actually left and went back to Florida. So you look at it, they brought in 8, I think it looks like, to sign 2 or get 2. 9 to sign 2.
9 to sign 3 and then 1 left. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my point to that is there's a little bit of anxiousness involved in it because they're at 0 right now. I know DJ Sanders is still out there, but my point being that I think Texas finishing second for Myron Charles is more hurtful than losing out on someone like Joseph Jonah Ajanye from Conroe Oak Ridge last year.
Because he never came on campus.
That he never came on campus, but they loved him.
Right.
So what was better, coming in second for a big time guy or not even getting him on campus? And I think that part has been heightened a little bit as well. So, I can look at the offensive line and say the same thing. Makai Saina last year from Arlington, from Arlington. He was a guy that they wanted.
Oh yeah.
He went to USC.
Daniel Calhoun, Georgia. DeAndre Carter, Auburn out of Mater Dei.
Look, Micah Hudson last year at wide receiver never visited officially, I don't think.
Yeah, no.
Tight end, Reiner Swanson last year looked like he might be headed to Texas at one point. Ended up at BYU. So Corian Gibson, defensive back. This happens. I think that the couple things happen. One is Texas is getting closer. They're becoming the second team as opposed to just a team that's involved. Number one. And then number 2, this little time period, this last 10 days was compressed.
Wow.
And so there were a number of boom, boom, boom things. And I think it was illuminated by the DeCorian Moore, the DeCorian Moore commitment to Oregon, which to your point was a huge one for the Longhorns.
Look. Josiah Sharma was the quick little hitter. Myron Charles was the left. DeCorian Moore was the punch in the gut. And then Brandon Brown was the knee and the to end it, right? Yep. So it was the position of need defensive line and the number 1 guy on the board, DeCorian Moore, all within a week of each other, essentially.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Yeah. And so
that heightened it all, right?
The collection of them, though, are very similar. Micah Hudson, Brian Westcott. I'm just looking down mean, Texas, and this is what I try to explain to you, Texas loses guys every year.
Right.
I mean, this is not new. All right, I got some more
Well,
stuff we want to talk
Texas
about.
brought in 47 official visitors last year, signed 21 guys. Of those official visitors, obviously, then DeAndre Robinson flips after Bo Davis leaves. So 47 official visitors in the last class, signed 21. Just something to remember.
Yep. Okay. And what did they bring in this year? Like 44, 45 so far?
Yep. And that number will end up 47, 48 during the season with official visits, maybe 49.
Okay. I want to talk about some of the other impending commitment updates that we've got. Jerry's talked to a few guys over the last 24 hours that we need to get to this morning. All right. But before I do that, I want to say thank you to one of our sponsors, key sponsor, Allegiant Digital Marketing, our friend Chad Markham, really good friend of the program. Appreciate him very much. Did you know that among the top 9 challenges business owners face, the most difficult ones are finding customers, increasing brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation? What if I could point you to a local homegrown agency here in Austin that could solve those problems for your business once and for all? For more than 25 years, Allegiant Digital Marketing CEO and co-founder Chad Markham, a UT grad and instructor of the Digital Marketing Boot Camp here at UT Austin, has helped thousands of businesses overcome these challenges. Take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special today and save up to $2,500 in advertising. Visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball to learn more today. Thanks, Chad, and your team for your sponsorship. All right, Jerry, you've talked to some other guys that are getting ready to make decisions. They'll announce tomorrow. 3 of them are Nick Townsend, tight end, defensive end, whatever you want to call him, a big-time athlete out of Spring Decaney, Tanook Hines, the wide receiver out of Spring Decaney, and then Kelshawn Johnson, wide receiver out of Hitchcock. Let's start with Kelshawn Johnson, if you don't mind. The wide receiver at Hitchcock, what's the very latest on him?
And I want to say this before we get to that. These decisions are pending weather.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Because I talked to Kelshawn Johnson on Saturday afternoon, and I asked him, I said, what are you going to do? He said, well, it depends on kind of what happens with this hurricane. If it's pouring down rain, I may have to bump back my date, because he's supposed to do it in the with some friends and family, I think at Hitchcock in the basketball gym. That may not happen. So we'll see. But we'll see if all 3 of these commitments, because they're supposed to be broadcast on various networks, right? So we'll see if these all go off without a hitch. But on Kelshawn, Steve Sarkisian's been in contact with him and his mother multiple times. Where does that go? We'll have to see. Mike Elko, Holman Wiggins have continuously been in contact with Kelshawn and the mom for the last couple of weeks as well. I think A&M has a slight lead. We'll see what happens tomorrow, assuming the announcement's tomorrow. But I think A&M has a slight lead. Does that mean Texas can't win it? I'm not saying that, but I do think A&M's been pushing as hard as they possibly can. And I think Holman Wiggins has done a good job with the mom of late.
I will say this. Hitchcock is right on the Gulf almost.
Yes.
So if there is issues there with Hurricane Burrow, they're going to get it. Spring Decaney, a little north of town.
Right.
Jerry, that's a little different with Nick Townsend and Tanook Hines. What's the latest on those 2 young men?
Yeah, we continue to hear, and it's not just us. It's the colleges that are recruiting Nick Townsend. They think Texas is the team to beat. We'll see when he announces, right? And I think this is a huge recruitment for Texas because, Bobby, we both love this guy. Find a better athlete prospect at tight end in the country than Nick Townsend. I don't think there is one, probably. I mean, there's a couple of guys that are in the conversation, but you just watch his defensive tape and you say, wow, well, you don't have to worry about this guy being a physical, willing blocker in the run game. He's one of the most physical players on a team when he gets there, with that speed, with those ball skills, with that just ability to fit into the Texas offense. I think that's a huge one. I think Texas is considered the favorite over USC, Texas A&M, and Alabama. We'll see what he announces tomorrow. Tanook Hines, similar to spot to Kelshawn Johnson. Look, Notre Dame, USC, his brother plays at Hawaii, so I think there's a West Coast a little connection there. But if Texas makes a 24-hour, 36-hour push, will they be able to get that done? I said this before, and I'll say this. if either one, Kelshawn Johnson or Tuna Hines, commits to Texas on the 8th, that tells you how badly they really want to be at Texas, because these kids know where they're at on boards. They know who's pushed harder than some other schools. So that would be a sign that Texas fans should very much be excited about and welcome if either Kelshawn or Tuna Hines pick Texas on the 8th. That means they really, really want to be a Longhorn.
Yep. Well, and both have. Here's the reality of it. That the Corey Moore had 10.4 speed, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you got to have one speed guy at least in a class.
Yes.
Well, now that spot is obviously open, and it hadn't been. It's only been open for 4 days, right? And so that's interesting, because these guys making commitments in rapid succession.
Yes.
Puts an emphasis on that, or an interest on that. That's very interesting. All right. The other guys that are still out there that we think could make decisions soon are Nathan Tillman, defensive back out of Mansfield, Timberview, and defensive lineman DJ Sanders out of Belleville. No specific dates on either of those guys at this time. Is that accurate as far as
That's accurate. And I think a lot of people thought Tillman would already be off the board. So Texas, Utah, TCU, SMU's still trying. They just flipped Ty Hawkins, the quarterback from TCU to SMU. They feel like they got a little forward momentum again. But that one may be a little surprising to the colleges that he hasn't announced yet. I think there were some that thought that announcement would come even before July 4th, but it has not happened. And then you have, as you said, DJ Sanders. Again, this one's supposed to be by the first half of July. Texas A&M, maybe Michigan in it. Probably going to be one of the two in-state schools. But, I mean, Texas is pushing as hard as they can there. They felt really good about that recruitment, but he hasn't come out and committed yet. So how long is this one going to go? Is it this week? Does it go even into the following week? I think it's going to be inside the next 10 days, unless something major changes in his timeline.
Another one to talk about is Jonathan Cunningham, in-state linebacker, a young man out of North Crowley. He's down to Texas, TCU, and Utah. Is that accurate?
Yep, that's correct.
He's expected to make a decision next Friday, this coming Friday.
And the reason I want to say this, he was originally scheduled to go July 5th. The reason he bumped that back, Ray Gates, the head coach, is out of town. So he gets back. So I think they're doing that. He wants to be part of that. And that's why it got bumped back to July 12th.
Gotcha. All right. That, and then all the out-of-state guys. Madden Framo, the linebacker, is one of those. Nick Brooks, the big lineman out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Of course, Michael Fasusi's in-state, but we don't think he's going to be until later in the year as well as an offensive lineman. Then you look at defensive line, it's just DJ Sanders at this time. Defensive back, anybody else on the board? I guess Aiden Anding. We may know something later in July, although you would think that looks good right now for LSU.
Talking Aiden Anding, I think that looks really good for LSU, unless that visit just goes poorly. Because that offer obviously caused Anding to cancel a July 1 decision. I mean, just shut it down and announce that I'm going to visit LSU in late July. That's really good news for LSU. I think that visit would have to go badly for him not to end up at LSU right now.
All right. I want to say thanks one more time to our sponsor. That's Chad Markham over at Allegiant Digital Marketing. If you're a business owner who struggles with any of the following: finding new customers, constant leads, finding marketing services just to promote your business that actually work, CEO Chad Markham with Allegiant Digital Marketing, on an Austin-based ad agency, has helped thousands of business owners just like you for over 25 years conquer these same challenges. If you're ready to start making money in your business and grow with confidence, visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball and get a free marketing plan. Plus, you can save up to $2,500 in advertising with their Hook 'em Horns special today. All right, Jerry, we got a lot of stuff going on. There's baseball news. Longhorns picked up a infielder out of Arizona State yesterday. I believe, is it Ethan Espinoza? Is that right? I believe it is. They picked him up. Our friend Blake Monroe wanted to make sure I mentioned that one. Also, Xavier Butler, one of the nation's fastest track athletes out of UTEP by way of Brazosport High School. He ran a 10.09 100 meter as a freshman at UTEP. He has announced that he's transferring to the University of Texas. So two big pickups there. All right, Jerry, anything else you want to add to the conversation this morning before we let people go here?
No, I think, look, it's I think the Nick Townsend decision is huge for Texas. I think he could be an All-American tight end in this offense. I think that highly of him. I think that's a huge decision. If you look at the Texas class right now, and you're looking at guys who could be a big-time senior riser, if he were to add himself to that class, you look at Lance Jackson, you look at Nick Townsend, you look at Smith Orogbo, as three guys who could potentially be risers. You know, one or two of those guys going to be in a 5-star prospect after senior seasons are over. That's how good we believe Nick Townsend is. So that's a big decision coming up tomorrow for Texas.
I'd say the same with Cade Phillips. Not many 6'2" safeties, long jump 24 feet.
That's right.
That's what people got to realize. And I want to end with this. The one thing I will say, okay, I have been around when Texas has filled up its class with guys that weren't necessarily good football. They were good football players. They weren't at a level where you could expect Texas to compete for a national championship.
Right.
Texas has 13 commitments right now, and there's not one of these guys that you would throw back.
Right.
That's the reality that people need to understand. Is yes, we'll see where they get to numbers wise, Jerry. And if they get to the 23, 24 number, like maybe they were hoping to, but I don't see they're not going down a list and just picking somebody off that they don't want, right? You know what I mean? Or that that they're being forced to take. And I think that's the reality of this whole situation.
And look at last year's class. Aaron Butler, Xavier Filsaime, senior year offers. Wardell Mack, flip from Florida. Ty Anthony Smith, flip from A&M. Texas will add guys to this class during the season and before December 4th signing day, and they'll be very good players. To your point, they're not just going to go down the B list. They're going to stay on the guys they really like. They're going to see what happens this season. There could be a couple of guys that are committed elsewhere, maybe at USC or something, that Texas ends up getting on campus during the season, depending on how USC's season goes, right? Or a team like that. So just something to keep in mind, that Texas will add guys senior year to this class that you may not even be thinking about right now.
Well, I'm looking at it this way too. You worry about the guys that you get and how good they are and how good they can become. This week, Texas picked up Smith Orogbo and Cade Phillips.
Yeah.
You would take those guys every year. Yeah. And so
you wish Texas took those guys 15 years ago.
Absolutely. That's part of my point. And then potentially adding Nick Townsend tomorrow, and then see what happens with Kelshawn Johnson or Tanook Hines, et cetera. There's still Khalid Lockett, Jamie French out there as well, even Daylon McCutcheon. He doesn't announce until I think the 13th of July.
July 13th,
Yep. So there's a bunch of guys still out there. Got to keep covering it. All right, Jerry, that's going to do it for Gerry Hamilton. I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks to our sponsor, Allegiant Digital Marketing, for this roundup edition of On Texas Football. Hook 'em.